guys, welcome back to Throwing Wrenches Garage. Tom here.
And Declan.
And Declan is busy taping off our calipers. We're jumping right back in into the IROT, back into the brake job here, and he's doing a little bit of work. Trying to make these, when we cut these off, we got to be a little bit more careful because we're going to cut with a, well.
What do you want me to do?
So what we're doing here is we're taping off the calipers because we're gonna paint them. So we're gonna paint these with a red caliper paint because everybody knows when you paint your calipers with red caliper paint, it gives them something like 60% more stopping power and makes the car sportier. So that obviously we're gonna do that. But mostly it's because if you just leave the caliper raw like this, it's eventually just gonna coat over with a finish of rust, and that's kind of gross. So we do want to cover them. So in this case, we're just going to spray them with red rather than black because we will see them through the mags, and the car is red, so it'll look kind of cool. But we're taping it off. We've cut it down with brake clean now, and Declan's going to town taping this off. But what we're going to do, show this to the camera here, we're going to tape off this piston and the bushing, that boot inside the piston, because we don't want that getting paint on it. And what we're going to do is sort of over mask it. And so what I was telling Declan to do initially, and like trying to do two things at once, and sort of not giving him enough direction here, is we're going to sort of over tape and then cut away whatever we don't need.
To go over the entire thing.
Yeah, so just go over it nice and smooth like this. And then just make sure it's all sort of sealed down with your finger as much as you can, on the rubber and everything. Because now what we're going to do, if it's now all smooth like that, I guess like so, when we come back at this with a razor blade and cut along the edge here, you'll have a nice smooth surface of the tape on the metal. So that's all.
Well, you did the easy one.
I did do the easy one. Yeah, sorry. You probably have to do a couple pieces in there to make that work. So we're going to take on the rest of the brake job today. We're going to mostly do the passenger side of the brakes. That's what we're going to film and show you guys. Passenger side, finishing up the brakes, and also doing the shocks. Reason we're doing most of the passenger side is, once you do one side, the second side is just more of the same work. So we probably won't show you much of the driver's side, maybe a little bit of fast forward action in the video, but we're really just going to take care of mostly showing you what we're doing on the main work there. And we'll also show you what we're doing on the brake lines on the front to replace those. We really want to try to get this brake job business sort of done on the IROT. We'll also talk a little bit more later on in the video about the blueprint engine. I got the spec sheet printed out. So for those of you who are curious, we'll talk to you about exactly what's involved in that blueprint engine, what's in there, all the specs for those of you guys who like the numbers. But for now, we're going to set to on these brakes and try to get these things sort of painted up and prepped so that we're ready to slam everything back onto the car. All right, so let's start first by tearing this old one out so you can see how it goes together. So let's grab a flat screwdriver. See if I can get under the edge here.
Well, that was easy.
Yeah. And somebody pointed out in the comments that these are not hard to get out, which is true. They're not really hard to get out. What's difficult about them is getting them out cleanly enough that you'd feel good about reusing it. That's the trick, because if you get this out and it's sort of maladjusted or warped, you wouldn't want to reseat it.
Was this the thing that you were super careful about before?
This is, no, that was the dust cover.
Oh, right. It was the weird ball.
Not quite as critical as the seal. Yes, that's the dust cover. So I think we actually did okay. We could reuse that seal. I didn't really have to mar that up too much taking it out. And now this is going to be, this is your inner wheel bearing.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Packed with lots of greasy goodness. It is definitely packed. Do you want to grab a towel? Like blue towels.
Blue towel? Like the...
Yeah, just one towel.
Okay. I didn't know if you meant like an actual towel.
No, that's what I meant. Just so we don't mar up the surface too much. Here's our new guy. Nice and brandy new, shiny. we have our high temp disc bearing
Oh,
grease.
I want to eat that.
Oh yeah, I'm sure you do.
But I also don't at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
The longer I look at it, the less appetizing it is. You know, I want to grab like a ball of it and throw it at something. Or put it in a balloon.
All right. So I already have, this is the bearing race. This is what the bearing sits in, like so. We already have a race in here. This is already pressed in, thankfully. So we don't have to worry about pressing in a new bearing race. So the bearing just sits in there like that. Feel how easy that spins. I bought the kit that had the race in it just in case. In case. I bought the race in case. So
In case you got the case.
in case I need the race, we have the race. So now that's in there. So now we're going to have to pack this with lots of grease. So the way that we do that,
I volunteer as Chippy.
old school, we get a nice glob of that in our hand,
You're just going to run it through.
and we're just going to keep turning this. Sorry, we wear gloves when we do this. I've made a nice mess of it already.
It's like a colonoscopy.
All right, plenty of packed grease. Nice and spinny.
If that's what you call it.
That's what I call it. All right. So this should be our new seal. Yeah.
And you hit it with a hammer.
Kind of,
Oh, really?
but we want to, yes, but we
I
want to,
was joking because you said not to hurt it.
we want to get it nice and level, and then we got to hit it evenly. So I need like a block of wood. So we want this to be distributed nice and evenly. You're going to do the next one of these. So watch what I'm doing. Nice and flat, nice and even.
The block of wood.
You can do it with a socket if you've got a really gigantic socket. There's also tools, not surprisingly, you can use to do it, but block of wood is fine.
All reliable.
And we will pack lots more grease in here before we get it set onto the wheel. And then we'll pack it onto the spindle too. So people are probably going to get on me for this, but nobody said it in the comments yet, surprisingly. I kept on referring to that as the axle. Technically speaking, it's an axle of sorts. It's really a spindle. That's what that's really referred to.
I'm learning about those in
But
biology.
it operates as an axle, so I kind of use those words interchangeably, probably incorrectly. It's a spindle. So we're going to end up putting this grease all along that spindle, and we'll make sure that it's really packed. Again, almost can't put too much in because it's going to keep that friction down and make sure that your wheels stay cool and don't boil off when you're running. All right, so that's these two guys gone, and that leaves us with just this guy. So this is your outer. And again, comes with a race. But the race is already in. See how it's pressed in there?
Mm-hmm.
And it's got that little conical shape to it. So we don't need the race on this side.
Conical shape.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Because these bearings are tapered. So you can see this isn't a straight wall. It's kind of tapered in.
Yeah.
So it's got kind of a conical shape to it. You can see it here too. That's a cone, right? It's kind of tapered in. And then this matches it.
Okay.
So the idea is that it sort of self-locates, right? So because you've got a tapered cone here and a tapered cone here, it keeps it from wobbling or getting out of alignment. If those were straight, then those things could eventually wobble out of alignment.
Okay.
But this helps keep them straight and aligned. Now, we're going to do the same thing with the grease. So this time you're going to do it. You're going to get filthy. So why don't you come around so that you're mainly in front of the camera. So the mistake I made not paying attention was that the bearings are only accessible on the outside. So you're going to have to scrape this along your palm on the outside like that. Okay. So grab a hunk of this, put it in the heel of your palm. Now grab this with one hand, and you're going to swipe it in to pack it, and then turn it.
Oh, this is weird.
So you're going to keep on turning it, like rotate the whole bearing in your hand so that you're getting a fresh face. No.
I can't remember.
So what you're doing, watch what I do. You want to do this, and then this, and then this, and then that.
Okay, so just
this.
I can't
this.
rotate it though. Because it's
That's it. You don't have to turn the bearing on itself. Like you don't have to turn the bearing wheels or the bearings themselves. You're turning the whole assembly in your hand just to make sure that you get a fresh part of it in the grease. But you know what? It's working. You're getting grease in there. So you just keep on making sure that you're packing it in there good. If all that grease that you had in your hand ends up in that bearing, then you're in good shape. And that will work.
I don't like the smell.
Yeah, it smells even worse when it's old.
Is this old?
No, this is new, but when it's old, it smells
even
even
that
worse.
stuff?
Yeah.
Yeah, that stuff also looks like a relic.
The worst stuff you're going to smell is gear fluid. That's the worst, gear oil. That's pretty universally accepted as the worst smell in automotive.
Old oil?
Now, the gear oil specifically,
Gear oil?
the stuff that's in the rear differential. When that gets old, it's really nasty.
Have I smelled that yet?
Nope.
No? Okay. Okay, what do I... How much more do we need?
All right, it's probably pretty good. All right, now you can put that down right there.
I did it quicker.
It's a smaller bearing. On, okay. Now this goes on tapered side in.
That means the pointy end, right?
And that's going to lock in. So get that seated all the way as far as we'll go. That's not it. No, wrong bearing. So we're going to use the old one. So let me build the old one up with grease because it's okay. Okay, you might have to come back and take this because now my hands are filthy. Take the disc brake, the rotor, and put it back on.
Mm.
Oh, your hand's filthy too now? Yeah, just grab from the edges. We're going to hose this off with brake clean anyway. Yeah, that's better. That's the way it should fit. All right. And that should only go on one way because that little keyway should fit into the slot on the spindle.
There. Okay.
Okay, now castle nut. It's this guy. A little castle pieces face you. Yep, thread that on. Lefty loosey.
Yeah.
All right, now can you turn the disc?
This?
Yeah. Yeah, okay, good. So what we'll do is turn this. Can you turn it still? Yep. No play. Still good?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. All right, I like that, and I think we're lined up for the cotter pin. Slide this through the hole
There?
in the spindle. Nope,
No, where's this?
sideways through those castle nuts, I think.
Oh.
Yep, I think it's in there.
Yeah.
Found it? There we go. All right, can we still turn this wheel nice and easy? It's a little rough. Okay, so back that out. We're gonna come off of this. One turn. Can you still find that hole again?
I don't think it'll be there, but it was like over here. There. Other way.
Okay, so what we did basically was tighten that up until we felt a lot of drag on the rotor, and then backed it off to get the hole to align. And that's going to get us to a happy place. So now that that's in, the way that the magic of the cotter pin
Oh, you turn it.
is we take this and,
Bend it.
yep, so we're going to take one and bend it back like that, and you're going to bend the other one the other way. Bingo. And then I'm going to give you the dust cap, and we're going to carefully pound that back on with a rubber mallet. So get that seated on there. Try to get it as even as you can. Even is more important than deep. And now you're gonna hit it with that mallet. Gentle taps. You wanna get that seated.
On the sides or in the middle?
Try in the middle, because that's why you give you your rubber mallet. Keep going. well done. Looks good. All right, so what we're looking at there is the brake line distribution block. And so you can see there's lines there that are tied into it. We looked at this the other day. It's the sort of, on the underside of that block, it's the back line that comes down and curls and then comes under this cross member. That's the one that we have to take off to get to your passenger side brake line. Mm-hmm. So that's the one that we need to remove. As soon as we take that off, that's going to start at least dripping brake fluid, if not like gushing brake fluid from that line. So we need to talk about like the most reasonable way for us to be able to go about this and to take that off. And I think what might be the most sensible thing is for us to get as ready as we can to remove that entire line and replace it with the new one as possible, because it'll be easier to cap the male end of the new line than it will be to cap the female end of that block.
Talking about this thing, right? Or like this?
We're talking about, yes, that's it.
Okay.
So that's what you're pointing to, yes. And that spiral line around it is like a heat dissipation coil. That's an insulator, because that runs underneath the engine. It's there to keep from boiling the brake fluid from getting too hot. So why don't we then, we'll remove all of these little clips. Those look like 10 millimeter bolts that are holding those in place. We'll remove those clips and then have that line ready to come out. Sound good?
Okay.
Come on down, take a look.
Do you need something to catch it?
No. So
Drink it?
I have these are vacuum caps, but they'll work for this too. Just got to find the right one.
Oh, I see.
So that should work. Okay. I'll take this off. This should be the only thing that has a caliper on now.
Yeah.
Now the caliper's off. And now we can take this bolt off. This is a banjo bolt. This bolt allows fluid to pass through it. This is not metric. All right, so what we'll need to do is get this line attached to the caliper. So that attaches.
And this attaches to that.
It attaches here. So this is going to go on like so. All right. But on either side of that fitting, goes one of these little brass crush washers. So we put one. Oh, yeah.
I'm actually surprised to take that.
One through here and one through here. I'll hold this piece better on. It's going on nice and easy.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Good. Let me give it another insurance. I did pretty good. I just want to make sure because fluid goes through this. This is going to be one of those places where it can leak. Okay, so now that's set. That means we can get this thing attached. So let's get those guide pins. I think we've got some loose. All right, guys, so I promised you in the last video that I'd give you a little rundown on the Blueprint crate engine the next time we talked. And so it's time. I want to run you through that and give you some of the specs for you number nerds that want to know what's gone into this Blueprint crate motor. This is a full crate motor, so this is pretty much as fully dressed as Blueprint sells them to give out to you guys, or to give out to us guys, right down to the water pump. The only thing I need to get for this thing really is a flex plate. It's right down to the wires for the spark plugs, even spark plugs in the motor. So all I got to do is get some headers, flex plate, and then this thing goes right in. And it's pretty well set up. So here's the specs of what came with this 383 stroker motor. It is a Blueprint Engines cast iron block. It's a 4-bolt main. This is a 4-inch bore motor. It's got a 1-piece rear main seal. It does have a mechanical fuel pump on it, and then it does come with an AN fitted line. And it is, this is drilled and tapped for a clutch linkage, which we're not going to use because we've got an automatic transmission that we're staying with. The rotating assembly is a Blueprint crankshaft that is cast, not forged. It's got a 3.75-inch stroke. That's what gets us to that 383. They are 5.7-inch connecting rods. They're hyperotectic pistons. I always pronounce that wrong. You guys will correct me. And it is external front and external rear engine balance on the motor. The cylinder heads are their Blueprint aluminum cylinder heads. Those are the H8002K cylinder heads. Those are 64 cc chambers. 2.02 intake valves, 1.60 exhaust valves, 195 cc's on the intake, and 75 cc's on the exhaust runners. For a cam, it's a roller cam. This is 544 on the intake, 555 on the exhaust for lift, and then 230 on the intake and 236 on the exhaust for duration. It's got a 110-degree lobe separation on 50 thousandths lift. The ignition timing that they're running this thing at is 34 degrees all in at 3,500 RPM. That's what they ran this thing at on the dyno. It also comes with a Holley double pumper, 750 vacuum secondary carburetor. This is a model with a manual choke. It's got an aluminum intake manifold, long style water pump. It does come with a thermostat and a housing. I don't know which thermostat is in there. I'm going to find that out. And then it has valve covers on it, harmonic balancer, spark plugs, the wires, the fuel pump, the oil pan, timing cover, HCI distributors already mounted on there. This is pretty well appointed and pretty well set up. And this particular setup, literally as it is, this motor ran through the dyno. Dyno's sheets here. I'm going to scan it and throw it up. I'm going to try to put it up here. Is it there? We'll see. On the sheet, on the screen for you guys to see it. They ran this motor, looks like they ran it up to around 5,900 RPM. And it maxed out on the RPMs somewhere around 5,900 max RPMs is where they ran it out to. We had a max of 478 foot-pounds of torque and 449.4 horsepower, which I'm just going to go ahead and call 450 horse because what's 0.6 horsepower amongst friends? It made that max torque at around 4,500 RPM. It made the max power at around 5,600 RPM. All pretty stellar. But honestly, if you look at that curve, it's making that torque, really monstrous amounts of torque, over 450 foot-pounds of torque, all the way from 3,000 RPM up. So it makes a torque monster of a motor, which is awesome. And even the horsepower ratings just I mean, that climb is just straight up, and it really doesn't start to heel over until you get to around 5,700 RPM in terms of the horsepower. So it is a stout little motor, and going into my car, my Chevelle, this is all I need. I am not street racing the Chevelle. I am not beating the tar out of it. This is really just a street runner for me. So this is going to do very nicely. It will have power to spare for me. So I am pretty psyched about being able to put this in. So stay tuned for next steps on when this goes in. First, I've got to be able to get the motor out of the Chevelle and get that space ready for a new motor to go in it. So this is still a little bit of ways away. My guess is, or my guarantee is, this isn't going into the Chevelle until at least after the new year. We've got time to make that happen, but I do want to get it in there. I'm itchy. I want to get it in. Sue me. But we are working towards that. Now, unfortunately, guys, we were interrupted rudely when we had a power loss in here when Declan and I were last in here. Declan's got some other activities he's got to be involved in now, so I'm just kind of wrapping this up for you. We were not able to shoot everything, obviously, in the dark, but we did actually have to get some of this stuff wrapped up in the dark, and we couldn't shoot it for you, so let me show you what we did. We were routing the brake line, so we did route this new hard brake line in here and get it run, and we did have to connect the brake lines and therefore connect the caliper in place and mount it. The reason we had to do that and do it in the dark is that brake line was just going to continue to drip and leak if we didn't get it done. So we had to get that done before we could walk away from this thing, even in the dark. And let me take you up top here and show you what we got going on in here. Lighting's a little bit less than ideal, but we did manage to route that new line here. It's a perfect fit. Just snapped right in place. We removed the old clips from the old line and mounted them in place. In the new line, we have one more bolt that we actually are missing and need to find to mount that last clip in place, but we will get that one in there and mount it. And then it just routes right in underneath the A-arm there and slides in place. So we are good with our brake and our strut mounted on this passenger side front wheel. And we're all set there. So this was actually relatively painless for us to do. And Declan did a great job getting that wrapped up. So there was a lot of concern online from a few folks about the rear brakes and what we do with it, and wanting us to change out the rear cylinders, at least on these brakes, before we move forward. Honestly, took the drums off and gave this thing a quick brake cleaning. There's really not much going on here. These are pretty clean brakes. I'm not seeing any signs of this initially anyway, that these wheel cylinders are toasted. But we're going to give it a good inspection anyway. For now, I think we're going to leave these be as they are because they really don't look bad to me. And they are the rear brakes. So they're not doing the majority of the work. The drums still look good as well. So we're just going to spray those up and do a quick, Craigslist rebuild on those before we slap them back on. Otherwise, we just have to remove those really, really tired shocks. I am sure we're going to be able to push them in and out like a piece of noodle. So just need to take care of that piece, and then we should be able to bolt that back together and be done. This should be easy peasy, lemon squeezy. I am not using anything fancy here for painting these rotors. This is what I have, not rotors, drums. What I have hanging around here is this Rust-Oleum high heat. That's all. I don't probably really need the high heat, but whatever. I have it. This is what I'm going to use. This is just a black. I don't even think this is maybe a flat. I don't know. It's going to work. Look at that. Just like that, we built drums. Easy peasy. Yeah, those will look good. Definitely want a black on the drums. The red would have looked really goofy. So we're going with black. That's gonna look nice when it's done. That's gonna look nice when it's done. Nope. Is it coming loose? No? Okay. So hang on a second. That means you have to try it with a wrench. So that was, I think, a 15. So this is what you need for that, but then you need something for it to hold the top one. Hold on. Adjustable to the rescue. So sometimes this happens that this works the way it's supposed to, and the bolt wants to just spin with the threaded bolt, or the nut wants to spin with the threaded bolt. So you got to brace it and start. So it looks like you got it now.
Yeah.
My guess is that this thing's probably going to be so shot, this might just drop down through the body when you're done. It might just fall like a limp noodle. Now you can take that sandwich of donut and washer off there. Don't worry if it won't come off. We'll get it off. Oh, it stayed. Shocking. It's probably just stuck. Okay. Now you can take those tools out of there, and let's take the bottom bolt off. It slid off a bit. It was holding for a minute.
Now I wish it just fell out.
Okay. Ooh. That's them.
Well, that's new.
They're not as shot as I thought they would be. Bilsteins, good stuff. Okay. Turn the Ugga Duggas down. 2 is fine. Okay, so now you can get it forward. Yeah. And blast her on. Ooh. I think that's good. Don't think that's going anywhere. Okay, and now I can get it from here with this one because this is a different size. Oh, not that size. Sometimes I just don't understand. I think they do this just to mess with people. I'm going to use as many different size sockets as we can.
But if you buy the Camaro socket bundle, you get all of them.
But wait, if you call now, there we go. I'd use the ratchet as long as you can, and then when it starts spinning that bolt, oh, this is the wrong way, I think. Yeah, there you go. Do you want to try it with the impact gun? See if that works? Yeah, once the car is down on its own weight, it'll make sense to come back in and check these bolts again, tighten it up. And then it should be a little bit easier to tighten this, actually. Throw the drum on. There we go. And that's it, man. So you got your brakes set up, front and rear.
On one side.
On one side, and now the other side we'll do off camera. But that's one side done. Not too bad a job, right? All right, so that's it for this week. We managed to get the brakes done and the shocks done, at least on one side. You feel better about that?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, it's like we got stuff done. We're starting to move. So the rear brakes we checked. I think they're okay. I don't see any signs of those rear master cylinder or those rear wheel cylinders leaking. So I think they'll be okay. We really won't be able to test that out until we actually get the car driving around. And then we'll check them for real, see if they actually stop and slow the car. So that's something that we'll figure out later. And the worst case scenario is that we need to do something to those brakes. And if we do, then we'll do it when the time comes. So no big deal. I'm not too concerned about them. So we're set there. He and I are going to take care of the driver's side off camera, partially because there's no way to film over there. It's really tight space.
Yeah.
It's going to be hard enough for us to do it, right?
It's definitely easier on this side.
Yeah. So we'll do that side off camera. We'll have a little bit of fun with that and get that banged out. And until next time, we'll see you guys in a week or so. So hope you had a great Thanksgiving. Until then, keep on throwing wrenches. See you soon.